Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of You Are My Boro with myself, Dom Sean, Scott Wilson, both of the Northern Echo, and here to talk again about Boro and a few kind of half news stories that might have leaked. We're at the end of May, and for football reporters, Scott, really all of May, unless you're in a playoff campaign. May and early June is the spell. Once you get there, reflecting on last season out the way, where it's just purgatory, really, isn't it? So bear with us.
This is the kind of the twilight month, isn't it? Where like you say, once you get to mid-June, transfers are cranking up a bit. You're not far off pre-season. You're starting to get a bit of an indication about who might be in, who might be out. Or at the minute, players are away in blooming Dubai and Ibiza and God knows where. Agents are with them. Some teams are still finishing their season off. So, your transfer window hasn't really cranked up yet or anything. So, and then obviously internationals as well. So, it's still keep watching. We've got loads to talk about.
You can only imagine our excitement when news dropped this week of a friendly at Rangers.
The Jeff Winter derby.
I had a proper fancy that. I'm on my honeymoon. I'm away.
I know you're away. I've been to Ibrox a few times, actually. It's good Ibrox. I like it. So that'll be good, yeah.
And Newcastle at Celtic. Does that mean you'll be doing the Glasgow double header this?
I might be doing the Glasgow double header back-to-back weekends, yeah. Newcastle up in Celtic. And maybe I can do a little kind of tour of Scottish Scottish friendlies for a week and try and sell that to the expenses department. That'll be interesting. Yeah, we really need to have someone at Kilmarnock
Is there a Boro line? Rangers Boro, the Jeff Winter derby, as I saw it badged by various people on socials this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
which Jeff laughed at. So pre-season friendly, one pre-season friendly confirmed. Kit you would expect is going to be imminent. Maybe this is the classic case of there's not much to do, so we're looking too much into it. But when Boro confirmed the friendly, it was Michael Carrick's squad will head for Rangers this summer, which it is as things stand. It's business as usual. And until we hear otherwise, we might not hear otherwise. That is likely, or that feels likely to be the case moving forward. But as things stand, there's no change, is there? It's
no, and I think it's kind of important to stress that. Listen, as journalists, we have people we speak to in and around the club. We're not just kind of sat on our hands here wondering what's going on, which I know a lot of people think we will. But the simple reality is, in the last 2 weeks, everyone we've spoke to within the club, the message is very much, this is business as usual. There's, there is a review going on. There are meetings that are taking place. There are discussions that are happening. It's not a case of the club just blindly ending the season and that's that. But at the moment, in terms of any decisions over Michael Carrick's future or anything like that, the overriding message is very much that, no, this is business as usual. This is a wide-ranging review. It's not a review into Michael Carrick's future per se, although obviously that will be part of it. So at the minute, we can only go with all the noises we're getting out the club, which is that, preparations for next season are underway, recruitment meetings are underway, and Michael Carrick's very much involved in them.
There was some football at the weekend, a championship playoff final. We were both at Wembley for Sunderland, beating Sheffield United in quite remarkable circumstances, really. Now, ordinarily, we wouldn't come on a Boro pod and spend 5, 10, 15 minutes talking about Sunderland, but we've touched on it really throughout the campaign. We both cover as much of Sunderland as we do Boro. So we've seen as much of Sunderland as we have Boro over the course of the season. And it does feel like on the pitch, there are various things that Boro can learn from Sunderland or Boro can take from Sunderland's success this season. That's fair?
Absolutely. I mean, I go back to not quite this time last year, but maybe a month on this time last year, if you like, just before pre-season. I think we were saying that it felt like Boro had everything right and everything in line. How many times have we said, it looks like the club is singing from the right hymn sheet now. They're getting the transfer business done early. Aidan Morris was through the door. Tommy Conway was coming in. We kind of knew what Boro... It felt like Boro was solid. It felt like Sunderland were absolutely chaotic. And yet, here we are now, and Sunderland are going to be playing in the Premier League next season, and Boro are raking through the ashes of what went wrong. what lessons can Boro learn? Well, I think the first one is that getting a few key things right can make a massive difference. It felt like Sunderland were rudderless. And yet in Regis Labris, they've managed to get themselves a head coach who is clearly elite level or heading towards elite level. They've got a few key signings right, and they've got momentum from a good start to the season and got the ball rolling. So get a few key things can make a lot of difference. The start of the season, I think, makes a massive difference. I think that's often underplayed. Sunderland hit the ground running, got some momentum, were able to very quickly wipe out all the memories of what had gone before, get the ball rolling, and really they carried that weight pretty much right the way through the whole of the season. Youth is nothing to be scared of. I think that's the lesson from Sunderland. They have the youngest squad in the Championship, and all season people have been saying, will they have the bottle? Will their lack of experience tell? Well, you know what? This is the Championship. It's not the Champions League. If you're good enough, then I don't think it matters to a large extent what age you are at Championship level. The best young players will carry you an awfully long way in the Championship. We saw it with Ben Doak, didn't we? Very little experience, and yet clearly is on a technical level way above what you need to play in the Championship. And for chunks of the season was the best player in the Championship. So youth, I think, nothing to be scared of. And it's a simple thing to say, but Sunderland home form, Stadium of Light, really difficult place for opposition teams to go to. It was about March, wasn't it, before Sunderland suffered their first home defeat. And we all know that last season, Boro's Riverside form just wasn't good enough. If you're going to mount a successful promotion campaign, it has to be built on repeatedly winning your home matches. And that's what Boro just didn't do enough of last year.
I think there are a few other things as well in terms of direct comparison. You touched on it there with the youth of the squad. But one criticism aimed at Boro all season has been the lack of steel, the lack of leadership, the lack of maybe character. Well, that is one thing you absolutely cannot say about this Sunderland team. And although they're young players, they're not necessarily inexperienced. Dan Neil has racked up a couple of 100 games already without checking.
Yeah, well, Joe Bellingham's not 20 and he's already played 150 Championship matches.
Yeah, and when you look through that Sunderland team, Dan Ballard, Joe Bellingham, Dan Neil, Alan Brown, Chris Meffam, Trey Hume, it's packed with leaders. It is packed with leaders and characters. And I think that's important. And the other thing I don't think you can get away from is what Michael Carrick has been criticised for, and I think fairly this season. Regis Labris is the flip side is very good at. So in-game management, Carrick again and again has been questioned and criticised for his lack of subs, his lack of proactive subs, making changes when it's too late, reacting to what's happened on the pitch after Boro have fallen behind or after the game has got away from Boro. Well, Regis Labris on countless occasions this season has made game-changing substitutions, as he did at Wembley on Sunday when he had the bollocks to take off his captain Dan Neil in the middle of the second half and put two attackers on. And I think
the second half of the semi-final, just to jump in there, I mean, he changed formation. Yeah. Second half of the second leg of the semi-final, Sunderland's biggest game of the season to that point, and he completely ripped up his formation because he didn't think it was working. Well, how many times have we seen Michael Carrick do that?
And the other thing with Labris, and again, this is so easy to be wise after the event, because had Sunderland's playoff campaign backfired, then or not going to plan, then the decision of Labris to make wholesale changes in the final weeks of the season would have been seen as season defining, and he would have been criticised as much for that as anything that Michael Carrick has got criticised for this season. But the fact of the matter is, it worked. And Labris has had the courage to make big, ruthless decisions on countless occasions over the course of the season. And I think finally, the one other thing, and this I think is relevant for Boro, clearly, you can sell your best players and continue to improve. Jack Clark was one of the best players in the Championship, not this season, but the season before. And the prospect of losing Clark on the back of a 16th place finish would have seemed disastrous at the time. And yet, we've talked about this before, that signed Romain Mundle 6 months earlier, like Boro did with Conway and Latilat, really. Yeah. And the transition was seamless. selling players is part of life in the Championship. It's been prepared for that, and I think Boro have been very good at that. I think that's one of the things you can't criticise Boro for. I think Boro have done that incredibly well over the course of the last 2 seasons. But I think it just hits home the point that if a Vandenberg or a Hackney or an Azaz, who we're going to talk about, was to move on this summer, on the back of Lat going and Rodgers going, it's not the end of the world. It's part of the plan. It's part of the plan. The plan is then to have someone there to step in and to replace and to continue moving forward.
And I think the only other thing I would say, if you're looking for a positives from a Boro point of view, I think the whole Sunderland thing as well just shows that things change very quickly in the Championship. Sunderland were all at sea this time last season. No head coach, best player about to leave, as you say. What signings are they going to make? It looked utter chaos, and yet, by the time the season started, they were ready to go, and they've never looked back since. If you're a team in the bottom half of the Premier League, it is incredibly difficult to turn that around in the course of a season and finish fourth. It almost certainly won't happen. In the Championship, it absolutely can happen. And that's why Boro, for all at the minute, there's, understandable negativity. There's doom and gloom. There's, apathy about what next season's going to be like, all of this. It's not going to take very much for Boro to just progress from where they are into a team that can challenge for the top 2, can definitely finish in the top 6, can be right amongst the promotion mix next season. You can do that in the Championship in a way that you just can't in the Premier League anymore.
And I do think you have to remind yourself, don't you, that for all Boro were incredibly average over the course of much of the season, and for all the issues that we've talked about again and again and again, had they won on the final day of the season, that had finished in the top 6. And it's just a reminder, really, that you don't have to be great to finish in the top 6. Now, finishing in the top 6 and doing what Bristol City did is the aim and ambitions of nobody at the club. But you're not a million miles away. You're not.
Well, you're giving yourself a chance, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about Sunderland. They were being written off before the playoffs, largely because of what Libris had done and the run they went into. But once you're in them, you've got a chance. You know what I mean?
Right then, just before we talk Finn Azaz and Riley McGree, and just a reminder of our latest offer at the Echo. It's just £3 for 3 months of full Boro coverage. And for all, there might not be an awful lot there now. There will be in the weeks ahead.
There will be.
Yeah, it's going to ramp up. Obviously, the transfer window, that 3 months will see you through to the start of the season. So it'll cover the entirety of pre-season, the entirety or just about of the summer transfer window, in which Boro are going to do plenty of work. So it's going to be a busy one. Or you can get 40% off an annual subscription. So the offer and available and the link through, I'll put it in the notes on the pod, on the vid, and you can find it on our socials and on the site as well. And your support is obviously much appreciated by myself and Scott. Finn Azaz, then fresh links this week. He's been linked with Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, and Leeds. And first of all, what do you make of it?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think the expectation this summer was that Hayden Hackney was going to be the one, that there was going to be a right buzz around. Where would he end up? Now, I guess with Hackney, the thing with Hackney is he's off to the under-21 European Championships, isn't he? So quite clearly, if you're a Premier League club wanting to sign Hayden Hackney, it's a no-go area until those championships are finished, and those championships might not finish until into July. So I think there will be noises around Hackney this summer, but I suspect they will come later in the summer because of that European involvement. Yes, Azaz has Republic of Ireland duties, but obviously they're wrapped up very quickly, and so it's surprising. I think we've said it on this vid countless times, haven't we? Azaz, probably more than anyone else, really seems to divide Boro fans, in that some Boro fans think he's absolutely integral to the team, and whenever Boro played well last season, Azaz tended to be at the heart of it. Some feel that he's overrated, and that when Boro dipped, it's because Azaz just dips out of games and isn't a consistent. I think Azaz, a lot of Azaz's poorer performances last season came when he was shuffled out to the left-hand side, and we've said it on a number of occasions. I never got my head around why that was happening. For me, he's a number 10. He's best as a number 10 in that little pocket, getting shots away, threading balls through to the striker in front of him, being able to drift in and around. I think he's a very good player. Is he a Premier League ready player? I would have said I would have said that Hayden Hackney would be a better bet, but then Hayden Hackney is going to be probably 3 times the price of Finn Azaz. I mean, I don't think Boro will want to lose Azaz, but what kind of price might make them interested, do you think? This is always the difficult question, isn't it? I'll throw it to you before you can throw it to me.
I was going to come to you on this. Because it is a funny one with Azaz, isn't it? Because for all the, I do understand the frustrations of some supporters at times. I think that's because the frustrations are there because you know what Azaz is capable of. So when he does have a game, when he underwhelms or maybe doesn't get into it, you're left kind of wanting more. He's got 23 goal involvements this season. Was it 12 goals and 11 assists? Well, if you take that out of any championship team, that leaves a gaping hole, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think purely because of those numbers, you've got to be looking at 15 million. Is that too much?
I'm not just saying this.
Number that comes to mind.
I'm not just saying this, but that was the number that came into my mind. I don't think you're selling for less than that. Put it like that. I think if a club comes in and offers you 8-10 million for Finn Azaz, that's not going to turn your head. That's not going to make you think. You know what I mean? Because like you say, his numbers are very good. He still feels like he's a player who's got plenty of development potential. I still don't think we really know where the exact ceiling for Finn Azaz is or is going to be. And having sold Latterlath, having sold Rodgers, etc., it's not like Boro have a gun to their head where they have to sell this summer. Now, you know, Hackney, Vandenberg, potentially Azaz. I think all of those players will have values kind of on them, if you like, that if people get near, then Boro will have to think about what they're going to do. Because as we've said, that has to be part of the model when you're a championship club with no parachute payments. You have to sell every now and then. Otherwise, you're going to be in, real financial trouble. You're probably going to, break the financial regulations, all this kind of stuff. So you have to have an income stream into the club. So that's not to say Boro won't sell anyone this summer. I think that, they're in a position where there will be figures that if people get to, they'd have to be seriously interested. But they're figures that Boro will set themselves and will be more than willing to stick to because, like I say, they're not in a position where they're backed into a corner and they've got to get players out and they've got to get money in. That's not where Boro are at this summer. So, if you like, all the negotiating is on their terms. They hold the aces. So, I can't see him going to go on the cheap. Now, we all know how this world works, don't we? If say, Bournemouth get really interested in Finn Azaz and Finn Azaz's representatives come to Boro and say, Finn Azaz wants to go to Bournemouth. He wants to go to the Premier League. He wants the chance to try himself in the Premier League. They're offering twice as much money as he's on here at Boro. That then becomes really difficult for Boro, doesn't it? But clearly we're a long way off that yet. But that's when it becomes difficult. And how do you hold on to that type of player then?
Because I think from Boro's perspective, if you get calls, and you're looking at the price and you're pricing him up, he's 24. So straight away there, his best years are ahead of him.
Yeah.
He's only had one full season at Boro.
Yeah.
One full season in an inconsistent, injury-riddled team.
Yeah.
So there's an argument there. If he is to play in a consistent position, in a consistent team, he's going to get better anyway, obviously. And he's still got 2.5 years to run, 3.5 years. He signed a 4.5-year contract when he signed. Now, I think this is probably something that Boro haven't got the credit they deserve for in recent windows. They sign players on long-term deals, which gives them extra protection. If this was a 3-year deal, if they'd signed him on a 3-year deal, you'd be sweating a bit now and thinking, well, if we don't tie him down to a longer deal now, we're going to be...
And in the past, that has been an issue, hasn't it? How many times has Boro rightly been criticised in the past for players getting into the last year and it becomes a panic and then assets either leave for nothing or you have to accept a fee kind of way below what ideally you'd want to. Well, like you say, fair play to the recruitment operation. Those days do seem to be out the window now, thankfully.
Yeah, so you are, and we've said this before on countless occasions, I think, really, over the course of the last window or two. Boro are in a position of power I think, when it comes to Azaz. This is a tricky one. Van den Berg, Hackney and Azaz. If you were to lose one this summer, which would be least damaging?
That's a good question, isn't it? Well, you get most money for Hackney. So from a club point of view, in terms of what do you get that you can then reinvest and safeguard the kind of financial future, Hackney's your absolute top blue chip asset. He could be what the star of the under-21 Euros this summer, which would catapult him in a completely new stratosphere again. So financially, Hackney would be the one that would probably make more sense. In terms of the team, I'm tempted to say Van den Berg, only because Boro are going to have to sort their defence out this summer anyway. And Van den Berg didn't play a lot of football. He was in and out all last season, wasn't he? It wasn't his best season in a Boro shirt. And I feel like there's going to have to be quite a big reconstruction of what on earth. Boro need to get their head around what's happening at centre half, because it's been all over the shop for at least a season now. So to a certain extent, if you're having those conversations and Van den Berg goes, well, it makes the conversation more difficult. Don't get me wrong, you're losing you're losing your best defender, but there's got to be change there anyway. So I would maybe say Van den Berg is probably the least immediately disruptive. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think so. The only thing I think with Van den Berg is on the back of a disappointing, underwhelming, inconsistent season. If from Boro's perspective, are you better off keeping Van den Berg? He has a good season next season, back to his best, if he's playing in a consistent back four and manages to stay fit. And clearly, this is a gamble, and it depends what offers come in this summer and all that. But I think you'd be better placed to then possibly get more money in a better deal 12 months down the line. But then I suppose it depends who comes in, whether people are judging him on this season or the potential of what they've seen before. I think on Hackney, it's an interesting one, because I remember when Woodgate was in charge and Burnley was sniffing around Dale Fry, I think, at the time.
Yes.
And Adam Webster had just gone from...
They had a number of bids.
Yeah. Adam Webster, I think, had just gone from Bristol City to Brighton. Yes. And Woody saying on and off the record, really, well, if Webster's gone for, was it 25 million? Well, that's what Dale's worth. And that was absolutely fair at the time. I think the same absolutely can be said of Hackney and Joe Bellingham. Yeah. Because Joe Bellingham looks likely to leave Sunderland this summer, and they're talking certainly north of 20 million. Yeah. Maybe 25 million is what's being mentioned. Well, yeah. Hackney, absolutely no chance is going for any less than that, is he?
No, I don't. I absolutely agree. I mean, ironically, the pair of them could be playing together this summer at the Euros, so you'll get a chance to kind of make that direct comparison. And like you say, it's a very, all the kind of metrics, all the stats would suggest they're at pretty much the same level now. And like you say, the talk with Bellingham is 20 to 25 up front, maybe a deal that could eventually be worth all the way up to maybe 40 with a whole host of add-ons. That would have to be the ballpark Boro would be in for Hackney, because let's be honest, if he leaves, he's going to leave to either go to the Premier League or one of the top European leagues. Well, you're not going to kind of agree to that deal on a knockdown fee or any reason, are you? So yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the level we're at with Hackney now. Clearly, Azaz and Van den Berg are that little bit below that, aren't they? Azaz because he's just not really reached the same level as Hackney yet. Van den Berg, like we said, defender, probably a little bit less anyway. Not had the best of seasons, but still a player with a massive ceiling and massive potential. I mean, what Boro will do if certainly in the event of a Hackney or a Van den Berg, and again, we need to congratulate the kind of recruitment team on that, is they'll do what they did with Rodgers and they will put in a whole host of add-ons. It'll be a massive sell-on clause. And we're already seeing with Rodgers, and we might see even more if or when he leaves Villa. That's as lucrative to Boro as selling another top-class player. So, they'll have to get that right. But I would have very strong confidence that they will, because they've got it right in the last few deals that they've engineered like that.
Finally, then, before we wrap up, Riley McGree has been in the news this week because he has linked up with the Australia squad ahead of their important World Cup qualifiers against Saudi Arabia and Japan. Next month, I think he's linked up with them now. Australia maybe joined up. The squad got together in Abu Dhabi, I think, ahead of the friendlies, which are taking place in June. And McGree obviously had another frustrating season at Boro. Started 11 games, just made 25 starts over the course of the last 2 seasons. Didn't feature at all in the last 8 games. And we spoke to Michael Carrick about McGree at the end of the season. And he was talking about how Boro were doing everything they could to try to get to the bottom of the injuries, really, because it hasn't been the same injury that has sidelined McGree over the course of the last 2 seasons. But that is not to say that there isn't one underlying issue that they're trying to get the bottom of. McGree says in his interview with the Aussie press, I've been working hard for a long time to try and get my body right, and it's starting to come good. Hopefully I can stay on top of it and keep progressing and get to where I want to be. It's obviously frustrating being out, not being able to do what I love. But for me, the best part about it is I can put my head to the pillow at night, knowing that I'm doing everything I can to stay fit and be fit. So if I'm doing that, then that's all I can ask for myself and everyone around me. The obvious thing, the obvious place to start here is if Boro can get McGree fit and keep McGree fit, he improves their team.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. They've missed McGree. They've missed McGree this season. You know, the left-hand side of that attacking kind of lineup has been a revolving door all season for Boro, hasn't it? Bergsorg a bit, Azaz a bit. Who else has played out there? Illing Jr.'s played, you know, in a more attacking role there. It just feels like it's been a revolving door all season, really. We talk about Boro kind of lacking a bit of steel, a bit of fight. Well, McGree at his best gives you that. He's got dynamism, but he's also a scrapper. He's a fighter. He'll work back. And again, you know, it seems ridiculous saying it, given how badly things went when he came back. But there's absolutely no doubt that in the Carrick era, the best that Boro have looked down that left-hand side all the time was when McGree was dovetailing with Ryan Giles in the Chuba Akpom Cameron Archer season. And that left-hand side was just, well, it was the best bit of that Boro team for big chunks. So McGree has got that. He is a player who can add something. Clearly, the massive frustration is it's just been issue after issue after issue this season. Now, I understand the outpouring that there's been from Boro fans on the back of all of this. That, oh, here we go again. He's fit for Australia. He's never fit for us. Always seems that when internationals roll around, he's all right. He's able to go there. He then comes back to Boro injured again. Yeah. I get that. Don't get me wrong. And I understand why it is massively frustrating. It's unfair to suggest to Riley McGree that he just doesn't care and he's tossing it off at Boro and then Australia comes around and off he goes. You know, no professional is going to be like that. But we've had enough conversations. I think we know enough about Riley McGree to know that that's just unfair. It will have hurt him massively that he was just unable to really do anything from a Boro point of view last season. You know, he's a proud guy. He's a team man. It's also just a wasted year in a career that we all know is really short. Like, you know, you can't afford to wipe effectively an entire season out. So I think that's all unfair. Although, like I say, I do understand the frustrations with Boro fans because it is ironic that he does seem to have played more for Australia than Boro in about the last 12, 18 months. But that's just the way that the dice has landed, really. Boro need to get to the bottom of what's been going on with Riley McGree. They need to get to the bottom on a wider basis with what's been going on with injuries and recurring muscular issues in particular over the last 12, 18 months. And we're led to understand that this kind of ongoing review and the talks that have taken place this summer, what's going on medically and what's the training schedules look like and what date is being at, all of that is part of this. Because I think right across the club, and Michael Carrick's, you know, pretty much said it himself, to be fair to him, but right across the club, I think there's an acceptance that too many playing days are being lost to injury. And it's key players. And it's, like I say, it's players coming back and then having to drop back out again, which is always a bit of a red flag and a worry. So that is something Boro have to get better at. There's no doubt about that because, you know, certainly last season, arguably before, but certainly last season, the absence of key players at key moments hurt Boro. And it, you know, Michael Carrick, in defence of Carrick, has found himself just constantly having to chop and change. We saw it at the back. I mean, I think it was in about February, they'd already played 21 different back fours. Well, I mean, that doesn't help anyone, does it? And clearly, from top to bottom, there needs to be an understanding of what's gone wrong there and some changes in place, because that cannot be allowed to happen again.
No, prevention is better than cure when it comes to injuries, isn't it? And when you go through the team, the potential starting 11 for next season: Sol Bryn, Dale Fry, Darrell Lenihan, Rav van den Berg, Alex Bangura, Aidan Morris, Riley McGree. They've all, Tommy Conway, they have all had spells, not insignificant spells.
No, and players will always get injured. You'll always get knocks. You'll always get this. But it's like you say, the issue with Boro was it was a month here, 6 weeks here, 2 months there. You know, it hasn't been just an odd game out. It's been fairly, and then out for a month, back for 3 games, out for another month. That's happened far too often.
And I think what you would say with McGree, just finally on McGree to wrap up, it's no surprise that he's fit. What you're saying there about him being fit for Australia, well, it's no real surprise that he's fit now to go and link up with the squad, because he was right there. He was knocking on the door at the end of the season. Carrick suggested he was close to being involved at the end of the season. So where are we now? What, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line? It's no surprise that he's fit enough to go and link up with the squad. You've just got to hope now that he gets through the summer unscathed. He comes back for the start of pre-season unscathed, can have a full build-up, and then we can see the best of Riley McGree again. Because, as we said at the start of this section there, Boro are a better team when McGree's in the team, and it allows you to move Azaz to 10. And if you can get Morgan Whittaker playing on the right, then suddenly having Azaz, Whittaker and McGree behind Conway is a front four that most championship bosses had got their hand off for. So let's see how that one plays out.
Just imagine the scenes when he's banging the second in at Ibrox. Oh.
Or Doncaster or Bradford
Bishop,
or whatever else.
Wait to take that.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm pleased to announce. Yeah. Surely it's coming. Surely.
Hey, what's the best? What's the most memorable pre-season experience you've ever had? I remember getting locked in at Mansfield once after a pre-season friendly. It was the last out and everywhere was locked.
Well, I mean, we've done a few of the overseas ones, haven't we? And like, they're always good crack, you know what I mean? But obviously the difficulty we have from a Northern Echo perspective is we do cover 3 clubs. And if we're going away pre-season with Middlesbrough, Sunderland and Newcastle, it becomes hideously expensive and very difficult logistically and all of that. So
and you have arguments to fight it all.
It was going where? So while we've done some of the overseas ones, we haven't done any of them. The Warnock, Cornwall, Devon extravaganza was good fun. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I would have loved to have been at the Tony Pulis boot camp with the never-ending running.
The mountain running and all
that. Would have been good. Yeah. The one that stands out in my mind was actually a Newcastle game, and they were playing at Norwich at Carrow Road. I'm guessing it was when Newcastle were probably a Premier League team and Norwich weren't. But anyway, they were playing at Carrow Road. And it would have been like July, August time. And anyway, they're playing the game. And about 75 minutes, it starts. You know when you get a proper summer storm? Like hailstones, absolutely. Like from kind of nowhere, the sky just got so dark. Started absolutely lashing down. And anyway, the referee just said, right, that's it. Game over. We're off. 75 minutes. I'm not having any more of this. And obviously, there was the Riverside one, wasn't
there? Sunderland. I was just about to say there was the Boro.
Really similar.
Yeah.
Did they finish that game?
No, that was a Friday night. Was it a Friday night? I wasn't there. Didn't they pull the
plug?
I
was there. I was there. And I remember the sky. I remember the sky. Lightning as well. Crazy lightning. Can't remember whether they let it just pass and then finish it.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments and let us know your wonderful pre-season experiences. Yeah, I'm sure that Mansfield game, it was Steve Evans's Mansfield.
Right.
And I was last out, or one of the last out, and got locked in there. Yeah. Getting locked in after watching a Steve Evans side in a pre-season friendly. The joys of the summer.
Beautiful.
Well, thanks. thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube if you haven't already. Rate and review if you're listening on your podcast platforms. And as we said during there, if you were able to support our latest offer at the Echo, it's just £3 for 3 months of full Boro coverage over the course of the summer, or you can get 40% off an annual subscription. So that support would be much appreciated as well. We'll be back next week. Who knows what we'll be talking about? A friendly trip arranged to... I don't know. Let's wait and see. Let's wait.
Doncaster. I'll go Doncaster.
Bradford. I'll go.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll see what the next week brings, and we'll be back next week with our next episode of You Are My Borough. Thanks. Take care.